Beginning, we had faith in something. We started a new church, only our press agent said not to call it a new religion. But it was a new religion. Rock and roll is the Western civilization. It's voodoo. And when I speak about voodoo, rock and roll is that magic. We bring a certain spiritualism to people. In the 50s, not only did rock and roll replace the family unit and brought the young people into a spirit of self-identity. They no longer looked like their parents, they no longer wanted to. It became a fashion. And it was saying, yeah, it's us against them. That's what rock and roll was about. You had a few bands like Elvis Presley who started out that way, but then became taken over and controlled. That's one of the first controls of rock and roll by the big industry, sort of like when JFK got assassinated and there was a coup d'etat in America and now it's controlled by corporations. That's when rock and roll got it, when Elvis joined the army. That was the seeds. They saw money there. And money destroys all art, especially when it's an art form that's going to tear down their precious society that they fought 2 world wars to defend. I mean, when the vets would look at me and think, yeah, I just fought and died for my country for this. And that's right, you did. Because this is freedom. Only now they're trying to stop it. They became everything they fought against. And they proved it in '66, 11 years later, when the second cycle of rock and roll came in. Rock and roll then formed a political organization. And that organization stopped a war in Vietnam and kicked the president out of the White House. That's when they finally saw what a powerful structure it was. And it had a universal language. Then we have '77. 11 years later, the corporations have taken over rock and roll. They've weeded out all the subversives. They changed the music away from revolution into meaningless drab disco music that had the same monotonous tones, same monotonous beat, and that working in a steel mill would have. It was a volume, as television is. It was a way to keep people from talking to each other, talking the truth, find out what's going on. So '77, 11 years later, came again rock and roll. This time, they're spitting in the face of rock and roll. They're exposing it for the sellout it became. The hippies had a dream, they had a revolution, and they settled for MTV and for less of harsh drug laws. And that was it. So the hippies became everything they fought against. They settled for nothing. They sold out real cheap. So, of course, the punks said no peaceful revolution. It was anarchy. But the whole time, anarchy. That was prepackaged and sold. There was an organization in England called the King's Head. So it started at a college unit. It was a political scientific group. And their way, they figured to stop real anarchy, which was starting to happen to England because of unemployment, was to take all the seeds of the revolution, expose it in the media as a fashion, make the word anarchy as the hip word, have clothes to go with it, have a band singing it, have the anti-heroes. That way the kids in the streets that are poor will grab as much money as they can to support this anarchy, but in clothing. They're not out there fighting in the streets for what they believed in. They're trying to change the world. They're changing their appearance, thinking that's going to do it. Then they committed themselves. So they joined the revolution. Instead of picking guns, they picked up new clothes, and that was it. And then 2 or 3 years later, the word anarchy, the word revolution, once again, meant nothing but a past fashion phase. So again, they won. you kept the fashions, but the music now is the same music that we fought against in '77. We're waiting right now for the spirit of '76 or the reoccurrence of '55, '66, and '77 to begin. This is '88. But pop music has been a voice and a bastion for social change towards positive humanitism. Corporations have subverted this to a social control. It has distorted our perception by giving images and sounds, subliminally conditioning us to their political climate beliefs. You have a nation of youth that once worked for progression into the next century towards an advanced humanitarian man that's now been reversed into a negative, selfish, totalitarian man. There's been no other youth society likened through values or goals or morals to the present American youth than Hitler's brown shirts. The American youth will hold utter disdain and contempt for the Nazi youth and what happened, yet they're the same. They're only tricked and confused through the corporate fascist regimes that inflict and infiltrated the American youth market. And it's up to bands like us to destroy it and expose it for what it is. But since they're controlling all sources of information, the only way you can do it is going out to the people and preaching.